What was the most dangerous thing did you do as a child where you had no idea of the potential risks? My brother and I once found a primitive lean-to in the deep woods with a small fire pit inside. It was probably the sleeping place of a homeless person, but there were no signs that anyone was still living there. So we spruced the place up, added more logs and branches to the roof so it was like a real fort. Then we started a fire in the fire pit. It wasn't very impressive, so we sprayed it with WD-40. That was better. But you know what was best? Spraying a live fire with WD-40. Instant flamethrower. Then the game became Flamethrower. We used to do this all the time, and then we would take the can and throw it in the fire. We would then run and hide behind a tree until it exploded. When I was about 10, my cousin and I jumped on a moving train in southern Oregon. It wasn't going very fast, but that soon changed. As the train picked up steam, we started to panic. I was on one end of the boxcar and he was on the other. We couldn't jump off because the track bed was all jagged rocks. Where we hopped the train it was grass. Finally, we came to another grassy stretch, but by this point the train was really starting to move. Finally he jumped and I followed. Amazingly we were both fine, except we were at least a mile away from where we started. We actually went through 2 road crossings where people had to have seen us. It was a long walk home, and we never got caught. You missed out on getting to be boxcar children. I was 5 and my sister was 3. We were playing out by the front of my house and a couple came up to us and started asking us questions. My parents managed a motel, which was where we lived, so we were used to interacting with strangers. They asked us if we wanted to go to McDonald's with them. The McDonald's was across the street behind our house, so we said yes. But they took us across the street in front of our house and kept asking more questions. Where is your dad? How old are you? I had to answer for my sister because she was only 3. Anyway, they said they wanted to drive us to McDonald's, so we were walking to their car. This is when my dad came out and yelled, "Hey, get your own children." We hadn't had the stranger danger talk yet, but we definitely did that night. Your dad's response was not the one I was expecting. Gosh darn, people trying to take my kids, so inconsiderate. Looked at the sun with a pair of binoculars for a split second just to see why my mom told me never to do that. Yeah, don't do that. You're supposed to use a telescope, silly. Apparently when I was about 2, Mom took me to the beach and I just made a beeline for the ocean. Every time she looked away or got distracted, there I was marching towards a watery grave. She got sick of saving my life after about half an hour, and just decided not to take me to the beach until I was old enough to understand dying. Toddlers are like suicidal drunks. My son does the same thing with water, and he spends way too much time trying to stick his fingers into electrical outlets. It's ridiculous. Messing about by the river. I fell in when I was 7, couldn't swim, and was fortunate enough to get dragged out by some fishermen I've never seen since. Legit nearly died. I owe that man my life. Oh crap, boys, I got me a big one. Aged about 6, me and my little sister thought it would be a great idea to drink the luminous fluid from inside those UV glow sticks because they looked yummy. 30 minutes later our parents were rushing 2 crying children to hospital as we wouldn't stop spewing up glow in the dark sick. Luckily the makers expected this and those usually aren't toxic. Not good for you though. My brother and I used to hide next to the side of the road and roll glass bottles onto the road so that a car would drive over them and the bottle would explode or the tire would. When my grandpa found out, my ass would have convinced you that I was a baboon. My sister and I were 8 and 10 respectively. We were on the 11th floor of a hotel for vacation in Australia, and the way the room was set up, you could look out the bedroom window to your left, and the balcony would be very close to you. I thought it'd be a great idea to see if we could climb from the bedroom window onto the balcony. I volunteered my sister to go first. Luckily my mum caught us as my sister was hanging out the window. She then took us both to the balcony and forced us to look over, straight down at the ground. Then she took an orange and dropped it, and we went down to see the damage on the orange. I've been afraid of heights ever since. That is some smart parenting. I took a light bulb out of a lamp, stuck my tongue in it, then turned it on. I was about to say that wasn't very bright and made myself laugh for a good minute. I sucked a light bulb while it was still on when I was young. That's stupid as frick. Burnt my mouth. camping in whatever woods I could find, as far away from home as I could get. I mean, I was a kid, alone, and trespassing. Nothing ever happened, but thinking about it now, I did this too. I covered my dad's eyes while he was driving. Guess who? It was only him, me and my mom in the van, so 5-year-old me wasn't very bright. It was only him, me and my mom in the van, so 5-year-old me wasn't very bright. Yes, that's the reason it wasn't a good idea. I rigged my garage up with all sorts of traps, using fishing hooks, kitchen knives, petrol, matches, the works. The plan was to invite over the guy who beat up my best friend. Mum cancelled that plan when she couldn't find her favorite cooking knife. We were about 5, MacGyver as frick. Kevin McAllister as frick. Tftfi. I had a choice to drive home in my mom's car or my dad's car when I was 3 years old, and I chose my dad. However, when my dad started fidgeting with the car seat, I look across a 4-lane state route at my mom's car and change my mind. So I jumped off the curb and booked it to my mom's car. My dad says that he remembers looking up and seeing cars pass this way and that but never hitting me. There was swerving, beeping, and more than a few dirty looks, but I made it safe and sound. I was far too young to realize the danger I was in. My sister and I would do so many crazy things that it's a miracle we're still alive. The worst I can remember is when we were 10 and 11 with a group of our friends playing in the woods behind our house. We were in the middle of dividing up teams for manhunt or capture the flag when this older guy, probably late 20s, stumbles out through a clearing. He was holding a 6-pack of cans in a plastic bag and smelled like heck, but he asked if he could play. Now, there is probably 5-7 of us, all girls around 10 and 11, and we were pumped he wanted to play because then teams would be even. So we put him on a team and were going to carry on until we saw him touching out friend and putting his arm around her, playing with her hair, and being a general creep. We told him to go hide, then ran home to tell my mom, who was, rightfully, horrified and called the police. But we were just bummed he ruined our game. Better than being bummed by the bum. Australian here. When I was about 4, my dad found me in the garden pulling the legs off female ridgeback spiders. Somehow I didn't get bitten. I'd also catch them in a bug catcher thing I got. Of course dad freaked out and I didn't do it again. I'd always assumed Australians grew up doing things like that, so the ones fit to survive Australia would be chosen quickly. When I was younger I went to unplug a lamp. As I was pulling the plug out my fingers touched the metal prongs and I got shocked really bad. I was terrified because I couldn't let go, and when I was finally able to let go it was like I just woke up from a long sleep or some crap. I did that about a year ago with my hairdryer plug. I am in my 30s. Not on purpose, guys. My dad was friends with the Night Stalker Richard Ramirez when I was a kid. He came over twice to my house and I went once to his as a kid. I was like 6 and thought he was so cool. Looking back at it, who knew I was hanging around one of the worst serial killers in history? I was on the jury for the Scranton Strangler. I was 18, a senior in high school. I took ecstasy with one of my best friends. If I remember correctly, it was a rainy school night around 9 p.m. I was driving with him in the passenger seat when the effects began to take place. We decided to drive to the top of the Ramapo Mountains in upstate New York, off the NY Thruway. It was a drive that high school kids often took. A 3-mile, approximately, about 15 feet wide road with the mountain to the right and a drop off to the left. With no guardrails, it was a clear drop to imminent death. With music blasting, roll in full effect and electronic music blasting, I gunned the gas and drove full speed to the top of the mountain. I remember the succinct thrill of my car skidding across the road for what seemed like 10 feet at a time. To this day I am terrified that I was capable of this and so happy to be alive. I was 5 years old walking through Washington, D.C. with my family. We crossed a busy street so my dad held my hand. But suddenly I dropped the 25-cent glow-in-the-dark plastic frog toy I'd been carrying around. I wrench my hand free and run back to pick it up. Small child crouched on the ground in the middle of a busy street, nearly giving my dad a heart attack. But goddammit, I got that 25-cent plastic toy back. TLDR, almost killed my dad and myself trying to retrieve a glow-in-the-dark frog. I went with a stranger in a car who said he was looking for an address. Yeah, it could have ended worse. I was not a smart child. I heard fertilizer was a component in bomb making, so I took an old soup can and some of my mom's fertilizer and tried to light it. Thankfully I used a piece of yarn as a wick and it wouldn't stay lit, so I gave up. I used to crawl around in the storm drains playing Ninja Turtles in my old neighborhood. It was usually pretty slimy, but we had one of those Georgia summer flash thunderstorms one time when I was 50 yards or so from the entrance. Never crawled so fast in my life. We'd go way back into them, looking for the rooms underneath the manholes in the streets. I was mostly afraid of raccoons, but the real danger was the water. We were 4 when we tried to feed our 2-year-old random tablets. We thought they were lollies and wanted to share. They turned out to be cat-worming tablets shaped like hearts. Came across a bow and arrow, shot one straight up and looked up to watch what was going to happen. The sun was shining bright and glaring in my face, so I couldn't see anything. I thought to myself, oh, it goes up forever, till my older brother tackled the frick out of me to get me out of the way. The arrow landed practically exactly where I was standing. Close one. When my little sister's bath would get cold, I'd get out the hairdryer and use it to try to warm up the water. It happened several times before my mom discovered. For some reason, I don't remember if I just weren't but or I thought it was a good idea, I stuck a needle in the cushion of a chair. Later my older sister was going to get something from a wardrobe, but she couldn't reach it, so she took the chair and set her foot down right on the needle. It went into the bone of her foot, and at the hospital they had to ask the janitor for pliers cause they had nothing that could get it out. I heard the story again this Christmas and apparently my grandmother got all the blame. Not my proudest moments of life. Please stand up for Granny. You were a kid, so they'll be more understanding. I drank glow stick fluid. I'd break them open like a junkie and suck out their innards. If I recall correctly, they were quite salty, which I liked. One day my nan found me on the floor with it smeared around my mouth and forced me to stay off it. I've been clean ever since. When I was about 7, I was waiting in the car when my mom went into a convenience store. I put the emergency brake down and the car started rolling backwards toward a busy street. 2 guys saw what happened and slowed the car down while one hopped in to slam on the brakes. Mom was not too happy with me. As a teen we would jump off high bridges into the water without checking how deep the water was or if there were obstacles. We would also get on top of the car while someone else drove at 60-70 miles per hour. Backcountry type roads. I have also driven multiple times at 140-150 on highways and interstates. Some kid, he was about 18 I think, from my hometown died 2 years ago because they drove a car with him on top. He fell off and came under the wheels. Dang kids and their ideas. When I was about 3, 2 years old, I somehow managed to unlock the bullpen on a farm we were visiting. They got out, and everyone had to run for it. I would ride my bike down a hill that was probably 3 miles long. By the end of the hill, we were flying down that hill at around 40 miles per hour. A few of us had no brakes. We were 9 or 10 at the time. Looking back, probably not the best idea. When I was in the 4th grade, I was visiting my uncle and aunt who lived in the desert. I found a nest of baby rattlesnakes that I thought would be cool to take to show and tell. So I captured them in a glass jar. My parents actually let me take them to school for show and tell, and then my stepfather killed them. I was very sad and angry. Grabbed a can of aerosol and a match. Stick the lighted match in the aerosol's nozzle and let it rip. And made a flamethrower. Did it couple of times till my nail burnt. My dad once threw an empty can of Shakespeare on a bonfire. He was in his 50s though. I once had a small electric motor with 2 wires coming out of it, and I thought it would be a fantastic idea to put the 2 wires into, yes, you've guessed it, an electrical socket. The motor whizzed like crazy for about half a second, and then there was a blinding flash of light and I was sitting back on my butt. When my vision came back, I noticed that my fingers were all black and sooty. The motor was dead, but I was otherwise unharmed. A small electric motor is probably DC. Mains power is AC. Not sure the motor would turn. Not sure I believe you. When I was a kid, I stapled my hand because I didn't know what staplers actually did. As in, I put my hand under the stapler and pressed down. I may have had mild mental retardation as a child. When I was young, maybe 10 or 11, my friends and I used to break into a construction site near our houses and play chase across the joists and scaffolding at second floor level. Jumping from joist to joist, a misstep would have led to a fall of about 30 feet onto concrete and rubble. My cousin tied me and my other cousin together back to back so we could escape like movie heroes. Somehow the rope got wrapped around my cousin's neck. It was a scary 30 seconds until we could figure out how to not make him die. He lived though. My friends and I had BB gun pistols and would put on ski masks and jump out into the road and point our guns at cars and then run away when they stopped. We'd also get knives, bats, sticks and pretend to kill one of our friends by the side of the road so cars would stop. Throwing all kinds of crap on the railroad tracks trying to derail a train, which was super smart because my house was seriously 15 feet from the tracks. I would have killed myself and basically everyone I knew. Swam out into the ocean to see how far I could go. Got caught in the current. My mom saw and freaked out, and walked along the beach for like a mile as I struggled to swim back to shore. It took me a long time. I have never been so exhausted. Flash flood. Got out my buddy's raft, and some paddles, and put on bike helmets. Went whitewater rafting on the river that had formed. The river was perpendicular to 3 separate roads that we zoomed across. My sister told on my got in deep crap. Caught my yard on fire in like February. Thought I could hide it by getting out the pool and putting it over the burn spot. Got out the pool and filled with the hose. My mom came home and instantly noticed A, the pool in freaking February, and B, the giant black spot. It was clearly not big enough to hide. Closed every vent in my house except for one. Duct taped this huge sheet we had over it, and then taped other sheets to that. Made this huge bubble because that vent blew so hard. This was in July, and to make the air keep coming I jacked the heat up to maximum. About 15 minutes before my mom came home from night class, I realized it was a sultry 85 degrees in our house, so I disassembled everything and just watched TV like nothing had happened. My mom walked in and it was like watching someone hit a brick wall, except it was a wall of heat. I'll never forget her face as I explained how I had made the house so hot. Tried to light a firework on the stove and run outside before it went off. Didn't work. Burnt ceiling tile. Tried to steal gas out of my mom's car like they do in the movies. Sticking a hose in the gas tank and sucking. I didn't get the hose far enough down. Took a huge huff of gasoline and passed out. Tied my sister to a telephone pole and left her because we were playing hostage. I feel really bad about that one in retrospect. Fell out of multiple trees. Hard. Asked if I could cut down a tree. All I had was a little hatchet. Spent like 8 hours cutting down the biggest tree in the yard. Didn't get in trouble though, because I had asked. Lots more. I was a total dumb butt. Lemonade stand wasn't raising enough money, so I stood outside with a sign that said I will do anything for $5. Mom came home and was not happy. During winters in upstate NY, we would get a lot of snow and it would drift up against our house. My friends and I would jump off the second floor deck down and barely miss the first level deck. Also making massive snow tunnels and spending all day in them even in late winter. That could have easily ended in me being crushed, suffocated by shrinking falling snow. But it was awesome. I once built a snow tunnel slide nearly 50 feet long, or at least 5 feet long. My parents bought a wagon with giant tires on it. Me, 9. Little brother, 5. Neighbor, 12. All pulled the wagon up a steep hill in the neighborhood. Jumped in and flew down that hill going pretty fast. We had to cross a street at the bottom so we probably could have gotten hit. When I was 8 I walked across a frozen lake trying to one-up my male cousins. I went through the ice and had to break my way to the other side. It was a small lake, thank God. My cousins helped me out of the lake, then we had to sneak in the house without being caught in changes because we knew we were in so much trouble. I caught pneumonia, and my parents didn't find out until I was 17. Almost got grounded over it 9 years later. Not me, but my little brother once tried to send a toy car back to the future by attaching 2 pieces of wire to the car, and then pushing them into an electrical wall socket. My family heard a bang come from his room, and all the electricity suddenly shut off. Luckily he was stunned but otherwise fine. My friends and I used to go and sit on rocks by the beach and let the waves batter us. We never fell off, but they hit pretty hard and I was far from a strong swimmer. Quite a long list. 1. Playing chicken with trains. 2. Stoning wasp nests. 3. Fighting random wildfires. 4. Playing on the mine dumps. 5. Bicycling down mine dumps. Brother moved his kneecap 6 inches to the left. 6. Stuck a piece of copper wire on a heater element. 7. Building a bicycle ramp out of a rock and flimsy plyboard. Resulted in my first shoulder dislocation. 8. Our bicycle brakes were jamming your foot between the tire and frame. Multiple near misses from trucks. 9. Smoking morning glory stems and seeds. We were like 6. 10. Jump in the closet, turn a cardboard box over yourself and play with matches. I was 2. 11. Play in the wild for hours. Tried pushing my parents' car out of the garage and down the road so they wouldn't hear me start it. My dumb butt self forget to close the driver's side door and I bent the entire door back and fricked up the garage opener. Needless to say, I got my butt kicked. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.